Welcome to Urban Agriculture, episode number 23, Controlled Environment Agriculture.
This episode is brought to you by CuriosityStream, a subscription streaming service that offers over 1,400 documentaries and nonfiction series from the world's best filmmakers. Get unlimited access starting at just $2.99 a month, and for our audience, the first 2 months are completely free if you sign up at curiositystream.com/microbe and use the promo code microbe. Hi everybody, I'm Vincent Racaniello, and you're listening to the show all about the third green revolution. Joining me here in studio, Dickson Despommier.
Hello, Vincent.
In fact, I'm facing you, which is unusual.
You are.
And the sun is streaming in.
It's a beautiful day out there.
New York City, you would think here on a 13th floor.
That's right.
We wouldn't see anything.
Yeah, well, it's late March, almost April, and if you ask a trout fisherman how things are going, they'll tell you that it's 3 weeks ahead of schedule because of the warm weather that we've had. So it's been a warm spring. And
it has.
I know other areas of the country have not enjoyed such pleasant weather, but
very nice.
We have.
Right over my shoulder. Look at that sun. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, Dickson, I understand today we have a very special guest.
We do.
We have been wanting to come on the show for a long time.
That's right.
And he is a professor at the University of Arizona.
Yep.
Which is in Tucson.
Yep.
Arizona. Gene Giacomelli, welcome to Urban Agriculture.
Well, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
We really appreciate your joining us for a bit to chat about indoor farming today because Dickson has been talking about you for years, a long time.
Ever since we met.
Who, me and you, or you and Gene?
No, ever since Gene and I met.
Where did you guys meet?
Let Gene tell you.
Okay, where did you meet Dickson?
We were on a program in Southern California to the California Agriculture Department.
Right.
And we were speakers. And it was the first time I had met him, and it was great because I followed him. And,
exactly.
He waves the flag. He he makes you want to join in and realize that this is the way for the future and even the present of agriculture. And then I got to give my talk where I was able to show, here's what we're doing today. Here's where we're going to the South Pole tomorrow. Here's the moon and Mars is down the road,
right?
And it's all a controlled environment.
Exactly. And the stopper of that show, by the way, was when one of the, technical advisors to the Secretary of Agriculture raised a doubt in their mind as to how tasty tomatoes that were grown hydroponically were. And Gene reaches into his briefcase and pulls out a stem that had 7 tomatoes connected to it. And said, well, would you like to try one? Because you just brought them from the farm down on your campus. And this guy looks at you as if you were from Mars. And then somebody whipped out a Swiss Army knife and you carved up a bunch of slices and passed them out. And I recall one of the people saying to another person, he says, this can't be hydroponic. This tastes too good. Mm-hmm. And then what'd you tell him, Gene?
I said, well, you need to have an understanding of how the plant grows, and if you provide it a good environment, it will return a good quality crop to you.
There you go.
That's what we do. We teach students, we talk to people, and we try to get that out there. And I never travel without some tomatoes in my bag, for never more.
I hope your wife knows which tomatoes you're talking about.
Oh, yes. We're fine on that part.
That's good. That's good.
So let me tell our listeners what you are. You are a director of the Controlled Environment Agriculture Center at the university. You're also a professor in the Agricultural and Biosystems Engineering Department, and an adjunct professor in the Department of Plant Sciences, and you are a member of the Bio5 Institute. Is that all right, Gene?
That is, yes. And then I have my day job as well, on top of that. And, there is so much to do, and this is a major interdisciplinary projects that we do. You have the plant science with the plants growing, and the cultivars and the nutrition, but then you have the environmental control that you have to build around it. And I tell people that you should never go anywhere without a greenhouse and a hydroponic system if you want to try to produce food, in a resource efficient manner. That may not mean a lot to a lot of people, but using the water more efficiently, using the nutrients, so recycling them in the system, and effectively using the energy that's needed to grow these, including the sun or including the artificial lights of the new urban agriculture, as I look at it.
Outstanding.
So, Gene, we would like to find out first about how you got to this point in your career. Where are you from originally?
Wow. Long time ago. I was came from a small farm in southern New Jersey, outdoor farm, no greenhouses. But I quickly found out in my undergraduate years of, in the middle of the winter, a small tomato plant growing in a greenhouse, and fell in love with it about 1975. And since then, it's pretty much been my career. I'm an engineer that, as I say, appreciates plants and has some experience in growing them. And then you surround yourself with good people who know how to grow much, much better, and engineers that can do good design. And I always say a good design shows no engineering expertise. It doesn't appear. It's hidden.
Right.
But what you should be impressed upon when you walk into that growing area is the beauty of the plants. Yeah. And that's all the horticultural people. Yeah. Anyway, from there, I had an opportunity to work at Rutgers for a number of years in controlled environments, getting my good background. And an opportunity came out here in Arizona in 2000 for the Controlled Environment Agriculture Center. They were looking for a director, and they were looking for development, and they had a lot of cash at the time. And we spent it, and we created this facility that does teaching and research and outreach and extension to the real world, people who can use the information. And we educate and train young people who want to go into the business or teach others or develop new systems. And we do it with other engineers like myself. Better than me, of course, better than me. And we do it with horticultural and plant science people who love how the plant grows and appreciate what can be done in a controlled environment. And it really took off from there when the U.S. began with controlled environment greenhouses. Tomato was the biggie, cucumber, a little bit of pepper, and of course the lettuces. It finally, as I say, stuck into our society in the late 1990s, meaning that you could get a greenhouse vegetable most of the year. And even during the troubles of the 2000s, particularly the economic downturn of 08 and 9 and 10, and some of us until 16, these businesses survived, which means society still demanded that quality, that consistency, that know where your product, your produce was grown, that know your farmer concept. And it's now continuing to grow, even with higher value and higher costs. People see the advantage. They like that tomato today. They know that they can come back next week and get a similar quality, and even next year, assuming the grower doesn't change the the cultivar. But so it's been a culmination of my career. Not that it's over. I don't want to say that, but please, that the industry is now in great demand in the USA. Of course, it had been in Europe and in Asia for many years, where they could not grow outdoors like we could in the U.S. And therefore, now that we could compete and the market would bear the value of this high improved quality crop, the industry now continues to grow.
So Dickson and I, of course, are professors in research here, and we we do life sciences research. You are a professor studying indoor plant production, and you do research on that as well. So I think it would be interesting to our listeners if you just give us an overview of how do you do that kind of research. You do an experiment and you get an output. This is what Dickson and I do. We do an experiment. We either get failure or success. So what kind of experiments do you do, and what are you looking for?
Oh, failure. What is that?
Lack of success is a better way to put it.
Yeah, lack of success.
A delayed gratification.
Well, you could say that if you're talking about benchtop laboratory experiments, we do some of that, but we do more applied experiments where whole plant is being produced in a specialized environment, or with a new nutrient, or in an application that's different, or even testing out new varieties, new cultivars. So we have what we consider also the benchtop greenhouses, the small ones that you can do a tabletop demonstration, but our big ticket items are the greenhouses you could walk into and have 1,000 to 1,500 plants that are being evaluated and grown in different ways right next to each other, but with some subtle difference, and to demonstrate that what the theory says should cause an improvement, that the plant tells us in real life that it did, and it tells us how much that improvement comes to be. Give you an example of some interesting, when I started my career, the average yield in the greenhouse was about, I have to do it in kilograms per square meter per year. I hope that's okay. It's 20 to 25 kilograms of tomatoes per square meter per year. So you fill up your greenhouse, a grower would do that, and we would do it in our research and try to get close to what a grower would be doing, and then do our test. Well, that number has increased to typically exceed 70, 75 kilos per square meter per year, just in my career, and I'll say since the 1980s. And recently it exceeded 100 kilos per square meter per year of tomato. If you're talking about lettuce, it could be 45 to 55 heads of lettuce, a 5-ounce head of lettuce, 150 grams, 55 of those per square foot per year. That's over 500 per square meter per year. So these production systems have really, to say taken off is an understatement, but the science and the engineering has joined in the past 30 years to make that happen. And I always like to think, well, it's obviously the engineering that did it. You know? You like to think that. The reality of the situation, sure, computer control was the big reason. With computer control, we could refine and define very precise environments. So then it was our challenge to create the hardware, the heaters, the coolers, the humidifiers, the CO2 additions to make that happen. But along come the plant people and simultaneously making new varieties, not GMOs necessarily at all, because that's not a big ticket item for tomato in the greenhouse, but natural breeding practices for the greenhouse. And that improved. We went from the big fat beefsteak tomatoes and cherry tomatoes. That was really your choice. Yeah. Now we have the truss tomato, where they 4, 5, 6 fruit hang together in that cluster, like I fed to that California ag guy who had never seen one before because he only grew in the open field.
Exactly.
Yes, and now there's more colors, there's sizes, there's cocktail tomatoes that are only about an inch in diameter, 3 centimeters. There's wonderful grape tomatoes and cherries that have sugar content that exceeds 10% of total soluble solid sugars.
Sounds more like grapes.
They are.
So, Gene,
some of the grapes.
For the same tomato grown outdoors, how efficient is your system compared to that?
Well,
I know that's a tough question, but
it's a tough question. But it's an easy one, and in essence, it is simply you could look at a factor of 10 times
and
more production
right.
of a tomato in the compared to the open field per year than in a greenhouse using the sun and solar radiation.
Right.
You almost everything is 10. Cucumbers, sweet peppers, lettuce is 20, 25 or more because of these vertical farms, these indoor where they can keep the CO2 very high and they have excellent lighting. But along that way, 90% or more of the water that we give the plants, if it's recycled properly, which it can be, but it's not always, I'll give that point, 90% of it can go to grow the plant. So 10% wastage. I calculated the other day a head of lettuce in the open field use 127 times more water.
Of course, California has as much as they can possibly use, so we're not worried about that, are we?
No, we're not. You know why we're not worried? Because the California growers are transitioning to some degree, more than they ever have, into greenhouses now. That's right. So they can use the water more efficiently. They have to continue to grow. We need them to grow.
Here.
We've got to get them through this tough time, and I'm betting that they will create these growing systems in greenhouses, become proficient in that, and never leave.
Yeah.
And never leave.
How many days does it take for a tomato to be ready to pick indoors?
From a seed, about 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
From when it's pollinated, when the yellow flower opens in the bee, it's about 40 to 45 days. And the beauty of the tomato is if you give it its friendly temperature, maybe 25 degrees Celsius, 75 Fahrenheit, something like that. It's all depending on how much light you give it. And the more light you give it, the more size of the fruit will be. And the temperature, if you raise that a little bit, it will increase slightly, a few days to a week harvest. So what I like from an engineer is the control aspect of these plants in our controlled environment systems. You can meet your market demand. You can predict, and almost guarantee, although I know a lot of the major growers will seed their tomato plants and already have them sold, the fruit. And that's a bit risky if you think about that. You'd never do that in the open field.
That's for sure.
You couldn't guarantee it. They don't do 100% of their crop, but they do a large part of it to guarantee a stable price point. And then you can, if the weather is not exactly cooperating, you can tune it up a little bit or slow it down. You never really want to slow it down, but to meet that harvest need. I think it's fundamental that if you can control the aerial part of the plant, the leaves, around the leaves and stem of the plant with a greenhouse or a controlled environment or a controlled room, whatever, and you can control and provide water and nutrients and dissolved oxygen to the root zone, then you have full capabilities of modifying how that plant grows, and like we just said, how fast, and to some extent, how much it will yield. And in doing that, that makes a farmer, a grower, a producer now much more like I don't want to say factory because that doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I mean to say is that it allows them to be more in control of their destiny of this product to get to market.
How about a precision farmer?
Precision farmer. I like that because that not only means that you're precise on time, but you precisely provide the water. You don't waste it. You provide the nutrients. You recycle them. And all of that has come to be the computer, the varieties, the good engineering design, I had to say that, has all combined to increase these yields. And with some horticultural knowledge to improve the flavor of the product
Right.
even the sweetness. We can make a cherry tomato significantly more sweeter or more acidic, depending on the salt levels of the water that they're fed. Side by side, same environment and the aerial part, but change that root zone a little bit, and those plants really can respond.
So, Gene, I'm a new student, and I want to get involved in this industry, and I hear this all the time, and you know that I've referred a lot of people to you. Let's say that I'm a new student, and I'm sitting in your office, and you're going to try to recruit me to your program. What are the selling points of what you're doing out in Arizona? How do you justify the number of students that you do recruit? Do they all end up finding jobs afterwards, or do they go into various subspecialties of indoor growing, like marketing or managing or perhaps growing also? Because we've met a lot of them just in our podcasting. How does an undergraduate view going to the University of Arizona under your tutelage?
Well, it's not just me. I think that's what makes it. It's my colleagues as well.
Okay, your entourage. How's that?
Yes. I mean, and if I can mention names, Dr. Cherry Kubota, plant science physiology of greenhouse crop specialist, Dr. Marat Kachira, sensors control specialist, my interest in general hydroponic systems, and then our hands-on people. Dr. Pat Rohrbaugh has been here for almost 20 years. She started before I did in educating these students. But what I say is that, yes, you're coming into a family of people who are not 8-to-5ers. They're not Monday through Friday people. The plants are always asking for our help and our demand, and we demand that of our students too. The best ones will be here when they need to be here to operate the system and care for the plant, and they will get satisfaction that their crops in their testing will succeed, and they'll know why they did, and they'll know why they did not if something went wrong. We make our engineering students grow plants. We make our plant horticultural students learn a bit about controls. So they don't ask foolish questions of each other and demand in the real world. They know there are limitations on both sides. And this also fosters a communication, a language that we think is critical, that you need to be able to speak on at least those two dimensions, if not more. And then there are students that come and say, okay, I enjoy growing plants, but that's not going to be my future. I want to teach. I want to go work in the industry, in design and in sales. And sales anymore is not like it used to be when I was younger, where you just sell a product and leave. I have PhD students that 30 years ago, we said, you're doing a sales job. Why? And it's because they're also doing research and development at these growers' facilities. They're doing demonstrations. They come back here and work in a portion of our greenhouse using their company's product and demonstrating. And then last week, we bring in 75 to 100 people to come and see, we teach with them, growers, but we also bring them on campus and show them. So the student sees a multitude of opportunities, and maybe they're sitting in front of me. They don't know really where they want to go yet. They're just enamored by what they see, and I'm still enamored about what I see. So there's this enthusiasm that we impart on them, and I think that's what I try to say, is that you make it what you want it to be. We're giving you an opportunity here. And oh, by the way, there are never ever enough students in the winter graduation, and not even in the big classes in the spring graduation. So come on down.
What you're saying is that there are more jobs than there are people for them?
Absolutely. I was just with a large tomato grower for lunch today, and he said that's his biggest problem is getting managers. There's a lot of turnover, of course, but to get people that, and that's a big part of it too. It's not just understanding the science and a bit of the engineering, because usually you're thrown into a facility that you have to deal with whatever is there. but you have to be able to work with people and manage people and get the best out of every one of those. Anybody who touches your plant in a greenhouse is basically allowing you to have a profit. If they do it wrong, your profits are gone. And that might mean losing one truss of tomatoes or two trusses of tomatoes on a crop where somebody set the environment wrong or pruned the plant wrong. So these people are critical at the harvesting and at the plant maintenance level, but they need to be managed at a level that they will perform and do that on a daily basis.
Right. So are most of these, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Please.
I was just going to ask, are most of your students graduate students, or do they appear first as undergraduates and then morph into the graduate program?
All of the above. We're getting postgraduates that are coming back to university to study. There is no limit. We're getting high school students that are coming in to do internships in the summer, getting some advanced credit when they come, of course, to the University of Arizona when they start as a freshman. I like when the sophomore level student comes in. They have 3 more years. They've already gotten past the difficulty of the freshman year, the challenges, we'll say, and we keep them for a few years, and they become, we work them up. They become managers of the younger students, and maybe not even younger students, of the less experienced older students that are here. I have a young lady right now that I think she's going off to Cornell University. Now, that's a great university, but I'm going to miss that.
Careful, really, because Dr. Racaniello is a graduate of that university here.
Well, Cornell's history in controlled environments has been way up there for many years now. I like to think that we're at least at their level, or right now we have more warm bodies at that level. But, the whole country is investing in controlled environments at the university, at the 2-year and the 4-year schools.
Nice.
And I could mention a lot of major state universities that you would know very well, from Florida to Michigan, NC State, Purdue, Colorado now. Unbelievable. I like to think we're 15 years up on them in time and energy. And I work my dean and his magic to try to keep our development going into the future, because we've come to a nice milestone. The production systems can be profitable. You always say if you do it right, and you have your market there. But what about the new systems that are somewhat yet to be proven? And I think there was some man, initials were DP, wrote about VF vertical farming or something like that. I'm not sure who that was.
DP? How about DD?
oh, DD. Sorry, DD. Yes. Sorry.
That's okay.
But that is. I look at those systems, and I would explain to that sophomore or freshman sitting in front of me and say, they are new to the world, but they are still a plant trying to be grown in a controlled environment. So learn the fundamentals and then take it to that application and deal with those parameters, those restrictions, those improvements that you can do in a fully enclosed growing system. And, of course, meet your market price point and your demand, and you've got a business.
Right.
I also tell people this, and this is kind of amazing. And I said I came from a small farm, so I was fortunate to learn agriculture in the field, in the open field. Most people of the world never have that opportunity until now. This is the first time in the history of the world that someone who said, I want to learn how to grow. I want to be a grower. I want to provide nutrients and fiber and minerals to my family. Okay, garden. But no, I want to be a profitable business person. They can do that now because they can set up a small hydroponic system in a corner of a building, in a corner of a parking lot, whatever corner you can start with, at almost no cost. and begin developing their marketing skills and, of course, honing their crop production skills and gradually build that into a business. I see that as this generation, is it the millennials? I hope so, that will begin doing this. And not all businesses succeed, obviously, but if half of them do, then they will stay in this, and we will have the first full generation from birth or from very early in their career in the U.S. of controlled environment food production producers. And I think that's amazing.
If you had to brag about a few of your graduates, and you can name names if you'd like, tell us a little bit about where they ended up and what they're doing.
Oh, I got to be careful with that because you don't want to slight anybody.
Of course not. I don't mean to take your top 10. I'm not saying it like that at all. Take them in alphabetical order then, maybe.
Well, no, we don't have enough time for that. We don't have time. But I can just give some generic. Well, first of all, they're all doing financially well off, better than me right now, and they're young people. I love it. I mean, that's the first important thing. Although I have a quality of life here that I love, I am not complaining. I tell you, Tucson is great, and I have a good family, and my children are well. So I mean, that's life right there. Plus, I get to enjoy each day what I do. I love getting up and getting involved with activities for what some people call work, and that's what I get paid for here. But they have got some unique ones. If I say the one that's growing on the rooftop of buildings in two major cities in the U.S. and could be considered close to the first, if not the first, certainly right up there in doing that. And that would be, if I can say names,
sure, go for it.
Gotham Greens in New York City. And that was Jen Nelkin, who came through our program here and teamed up with two other people that added to the business and the marketing side of her production capabilities. And now they've expanded out of New York. After 3 units, they're in Chicago.
It's amazing.
That to me says something, quite dramatic. Think about also the young man who took off from here, went, I guess it's 11,000 miles to the South Pole, and made a food growth chamber work for the National Science Foundation. We designed it. He helped us build it and test it here, working with a small business here in Arizona, and took it apart. And it was reconstructed at the South Pole, and he became our emissary, the one who went down there and made it work through its capabilities. And he now is working at a farm in Indiana, which I drove up to the building, and it was a parking lot, and this looked like a warehouse, and it said, "Welcome to the farm." And I'm looking around, the old farm boy. I'm saying, okay, and it was, of course, Green Sense Farms, and that was Lane Patterson, and he's growing in a multi-level, fully enclosed LED lighted system. You can find all these on the internet. You know that. And,
sure.
It's demonstrating viability. It's demonstrating creativeness. Yep. But think about it. Jen was a New York City girl, young lady.
That's right.
And now she said, I ride my bicycle into the farm, on 47th Street. I don't know, wherever it is in Brooklyn, But that's, those two certainly stick out. But many of the students are teachers now. Even certainly in a lot of the students from Mexico are now PhDs there, teaching the short courses that we would teach, going down, teaching in English with their translation, and now they're doing it in Spanish. We have people in the development forces of climate control companies.
Yep.
So they're out there, and even related areas that you learn climate control in a greenhouse. You can go and work for a company that does climate control for buildings.
Sure.
And it's a little bit of different critter. People don't breathe out as much moisture as plants do, but that's also critical too. So we got all that. I think the education part of it, though, is most rewarding and most valuable in the long term. If anything, usually we say that finance money is usually limiting. That doesn't seem to be the case these days. There's opportunities out there.
Sure.
But for sure, operators, managers, people that have hands-on experience are definitely limiting. And therefore, there are international guests coming in and doing some of this work, but not for long. As we gear up more here in Arizona. And as I said, the other universities and community colleges are gearing up. What I ask is that they try to give them some hands-on experience in the process. That's key.
This episode is sponsored by CuriosityStream, the world's first ad-free, nonfiction streaming service. It's founded by John Hendricks, the founder of Discovery Communications. You'll find there over 1,400 titles and 600 hours of content. It's available in 196 countries worldwide, and here on TWIV we reach most of those countries, so you're able to get it. And the streaming is available on many platforms. You can stream on a web app, on Roku, Android, iOS, Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Amazon Kindle, and Apple TV. Now, what do they have at CuriosityStream? A wide variety of science and technology content, which our listeners will probably like, but also nature, history, and many other topics as well. You'll also find over 50 hours of 4K content, which they've just launched, and of course, they're building to make that library even bigger. In addition to documentaries, they also have interviews and lectures. For example, Stephen Hawking's Universe. Stephen Hawking traces the history of astronomical theories and technology. Next World featuring Michio Kaku talking about the future of technology, virtual reality, AI, and other technological questions. They even have some programs on viruses. One of them is called Viruses Destruction and Creation, where they talk about Zika virus, of course. Life on Earth, a series that explores biodiversity of our bodies, and many, many others. With CuriosityStream, you get real science shows and not just reality TV science shows like the ones plaguing cable TV. There are monthly and annual plans available, and the plans start at just $2.99 a month. Less than a cup of coffee or the cost of one title on competing on-demand platforms. Check out curiositystream.com/microbe and use the promo code microbe during sign-up to get unlimited access to the world's top documentaries and nonfiction series completely free for the first 60 days. That's 2 entire months free of one of the largest 4K libraries around. Just go to curiositystream.com/microbe and use the offer code microbe at startup. And use the offer code microbe at sign up. We thank CuriosityStream for their support.
So you got the future of this business, controlled environment. Agriculture's been around for a while, and you've been around for a while, so have I, but certainly not involved as much as you. Well, how do you see the future? Where do you think the big advances are going to be made over the next 10 to 15 years that'll make it so practical and so easy for people to get involved that they can't say no?
Yes, I hear you. The easy answer and the short answer, and let's get into it a little bit, is lighting, and that's LED lighting.
Got it.
A light-emitting diode and what it can do. I compare it to what the nutritional science people did 100 years ago when they realized that there was these 16 different elements or salts from the earth that you had to combine to make plants grow. And forevermore, we've been arguing about the best recipe for fertilization. And for each type of crop, and even different cultivars within a particular species of crop. And that will probably go on long after we're both gone. Now, think about with LED lighting. with the spectrum of colors. We'll just say that the white light of the sun is combined with all the colors of the rainbow. As these combination of colors are put together in a recipe, quote unquote, that will make a plant produce more efficiently, grow faster, make a better phytochemical makeup, more lycopene for cancer resistance in tomatoes, for example. That will be the hardware. That will be the future. The hardware is being developed, and that's the diodes. They're getting
Right.
less expensive. They're getting more efficient. They're becoming more colors. And many, many schools, and that's, I think, a big part of where this is coming from, the urban agriculture, the indoor agriculture at many of the other schools are jumping right to that and focusing on LEDs. And rightfully so. So I still think that'll take a generation. I think it's 20 years of studies before the books will be written and we can look back. I hope we can look back and say, yeah, this is the recipe that works for a tomato.
Yep.
And you want to grow it to a little bit different shape or size. Okay, you add this color. So the LED is a big one. And of course, unfortunately, the high pressure sodium lamps and the fluorescence for plant growing will fade away.
Yep.
They will not improve in their. If they could improve their efficiency, they might stay around longer. But the LED will be the way to go. So I think that's the big ticket. And then maybe I'll get away from the technology. I mean, there are some technologies. Well, no, I have to say one for Dr. Murat Kachira. We want the plant to speak to us. The Japanese and the Dutch have talked many years about finding the speaking plant. And we joke that the plant's always been speaking to us. We just don't understand the language. We've got to work on that. The best growers can see the speak from the plant by visual means and know when to change something. But what we want to do, of course, is use sensors that can non-destructively, monitor the plant remotely and tell us when it needs water, when it needs nitrate fertilizer, when there's an insect infestation, how efficient it's using lighting at that given moment in real time. These things will exist and will be used to make the grower and the growing system more efficient. That's the biggest limitation with computers. It's not the software in being able to make a special control strategy. It's the ability to know the condition of the plant.
Sure.
And whether it's in a great situation or it's under even the slightest stress. And we are working on it. Other people have been working on it for many years. But that'll be another technology jump that will come that I look forward to. But I think the bigger picture is that controlled environment and food production locally and under these procedures will be perceived as, you'll never hear that question, it doesn't taste good, or it's not good for me, or it's not as good as it could be if I grew it outdoors. There will be no distinction anymore. We'll come to trust that. We'll come to respect it, particularly when you can guarantee pesticide free, and soon, even now, in some circumstances, to guarantee organically fertilized plants. There's a big market for that, and that's still somewhat of a major challenge for the fruiting crops: tomato, cucumber, pepper. For the greens and all that grow very quickly, you can get by, and I got to be careful. I said there are many growers doing it and selling certified organic green crops. Much harder to do with the fruiting crops, but that'll become second nature as well. Therefore, our vegetable marketplace, our supermarkets, or our fresh market stands will have that as a on the shelf, labeled as that, and you know exactly what you're getting. Maybe even when the electronics get small enough, and it's beginning to get there, that every tomato will have a chip on it that tells you where it came from. If you put your cell phone next to it, it'll tell you the environment that it endured, that even that will tell you that's a good thing, this temperature, and nighttime lower than this, or it'll give you a sign that, oh, it wasn't handled properly after harvest. Don't buy me.
And every tomato will have a name then.
It could become a personalized tomato. Yes. Yeah.
Gene, do you think at some point there will be more plant-based crop production done indoors than on traditional land-based farms?
Wow. The replacement of land-based farms more with indoor, that, if it's to come, and I say if, is a long way off. It could happen if there's some catastrophic reason like Fukushima for it to happen, with the radioactive problems in the soil where you can't grow. But there's a lot of arable land out there, and if we continue to care for it, those who do, and there's the availability, the climate doesn't change that much, we'll still produce in the open field. Certainly, I have to believe even in the long term, the staple crops, the proteinaceous crops, the wheat, the rice, the corn, the soybeans, outdoors. Can we grow them indoors? Yes, of course, absolutely. It's not going to be practical from an economic standpoint or an energy standpoint for a long time. But any of the specialty crops, any of the crops, to me, they're all special, but let's say those that have a short shelf life, that can't be grown and dried and stored and then shipped around the world. Those that deteriorate rapidly, you should eat them quickly. They'll be more and more and more indoors, because people are going to go to that for the quality that they know they can get. And people do appreciate good food. And what is good food? It's a different definition to everybody, but they can appreciate freshness and crispness and flavor, and they know flavor deteriorates over time, even in the best tomato or the best snap bean, whatever, the crispness of lettuce too. So to grow it locally, and the only option, if there's no land because it's been used for other things, then you go indoors, where production can keep pace or exceed the cost associated with land values. Or if water is dear in that location, can compete in that sense. Therefore, you're not going to grow these types of crops and use the precious water out of doors when they're 5 to 8 times more water use, or that one example, 127 times. Very specialized example there, but you're going to begin to use our resources more cautiously and try to get more from them to a limit. We'll then go and get corn and soybeans and the rice and potatoes from other sites or other sources, but certainly we will get better at growing indoors. And by that I mean it's not just, a grower learns more tricks or more experiences, but the technology will improve. And what's the next biggest technology coming? Like we discussed the LED, and we discussed a bit about the plant speaking to us. That will make indoor growing, it's all going in the right direction towards improvement.
So if you, I know you do a lot of traveling, and I do too, and we keep our ear to the ground, obviously, as to what's happening in those places. Give us your snapshot view of the world as it exists right now, with regards to where the hotspots are for training for indoor controlled environment agriculture. I know that obviously you're one of them, but yes. And you mentioned some in the United States. How about taking us on a little world tour just over the next 5 minutes or so, and giving us your thumbnail impressions of, let's say, Japan and Singapore and Korea, China, which is a big question mark as far as I'm concerned, because they don't do a lot of talking until they have something up and running already. Taiwan, on the other hand, has apparently got a lot of vertical farms and other greenhouse activities there too. So I'm quite impressed with the rumors that I've been hearing. But so what have you been hearing?
Well, actually, Dr. Wei Fang is one of the my students from a way back, and my other colleague Casey Ting, um, when I was at Rutgers University, and he's in at National Taiwan University, and has been
Ha.
promoting NTU, been promoting controlled environments, greenhouses, but in the past 10 plus years, the indoor growing. And he has, if you ever have an opportunity to hear him speak and see the work that he's done, he's an excellent engineer, and we made him learn sufficient enough about growing plants that he knows when to go get help. Let's put it that way. And he can make a good crop. So that's why Taiwan certainly is way up there. I was going to say, I really only want to talk about U.S., but that's unfair, isn't it?
A little bit, but
a little bit. But certainly the Asian nations, Taiwan and Korea and Japan, and now the mainland China, as I might call it, is moving into. They've always been in greenhouses.
Right.
They're emphasizing them even more, but at the same time, they're parallel. They're moving ahead as quickly as they can with these indoor, artificially lighted, because of the density of the people and the lack of space. Mm-hmm. They do have to deal with high electric power concerns, so they're putting good engineering to work to make sure they design it as efficiently as possible, and they're succeeding. And of course, we know about in Japan, Dr. Kozai.
Yes.
We've all heard him speak, and he's been on it for almost his entire career, and is well respected, and has much successes at his university and the companies that have come out of some of his work. Mm-hmm. But China is jumping very quickly right now. I know of some operations that are going in as we speak. They already have something like 3.5 million hectares of greenhouses. 3.5 million hectares.
Wow.
You multiply by 2.5, so you're up there around 8+ million acres of greenhouses in the country of China. Well, when you have all that people, you need to do it, and now they're going to go even more dense. So we will watch them, and as other places in the world increase their density, you look to India, look to Mexico. You've been to Mexico City lately and see all that's going on.
No, I haven't, but I'd like to.
It's going to take off. It has to.
Yeah.
But one place for education, though, I should say, while I'm with it, those universities like University Tokyo and Chiba University in Japan and National Taiwan University in Taiwan and Seoul National University in Korea, all of those have great technical education, and they have begun creating the ability to, without having the farmers coming to college or to university, to be able to give them the information they need to grow efficiently. So they're all in the right direction, much like the U.S. has done forever with our cooperative extension program that each land-grant university in every state has to help our farmers. And I got applause the other day when I said the farms, we have 2% or less of our people in the U.S. working on farms right now, and we have the lowest cost for food in the world. 10% or less of our disposable income goes to feeding ourselves. And there was a farmer on the program with me, so I turned to him and clapped, and the whole audience applauded. It was, there's just this respect now that has developed, and appreciation, and it's been a long time coming, and it's due. Anyway, the bottom line is there is education going on in Europe. I was just in Germany with the German Space Agency, and they're getting into food production for the long-term commitment to Antarctica research and to other planets research. But it's the Dutch, the Wageningen University Research Center, the WUR, amazing number of people there, young people, experienced people to educate you and do research. That's a target we all should look to in terms of a full interdisciplinary program of education, research, and outreach to teach the growers. And they even team with companies and go to other countries. Middle East has been a big pull in the arid areas of the Middle East where water is so dear, and in Northern Africa. These areas are developing because of the need. And just as they avoided the copper wire phone lines and went right to cell phones, they may avoid traditional high-intensity field agriculture that we still have here in the U.S. and in many other countries for high productivity, but go to the even higher productivity of indoor growing with controlled environments. Makes a lot of sense to me. Why go up the scale when you know what the endpoint should be? Just go right there.
Sure. It's going to make an awful lot of locusts unhappy.
Yes. Think about that. When they get hungry, look out.
We don't need them anymore.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Antarctica project? What's that all about?
Well, there are now about 10 small food production systems in Antarctica. And there's a treaty that says, Antarctic Treaty, that the whole world has joined in, that we're careful about what is brought there. So a lot of the food is brought as processed. You can't bring live plants because it might bring disease or insects, but you can bring seed, and therefore you could grow, and therefore you can grow indoors. In 2004, we had a project with Sadler Machine Company here in Tempe, Arizona, and the National Science Foundation to build a 240 square foot growing chamber inside their research facilities. So it's inside the building. So it's a grow room, and but it was water-cooled high pressure sodium lamps, recirculating hydroponic systems. At one point, they were growing 70 different species of plants in there. Not a lot of them, but they wanted they wanted a great variety of crops to have fresh vegetables, because they're closed up. It's South Pole for 8 months of the year, where there's no flights that can come in to bring any of the processed or fresh vegetables that they can eat. They get a lot of frozen and dried food, obviously. But the Germans have a station on the coast, and they are putting up this chamber that will be standalone. It's not inside their building, and ultimately it will be a test for what could be on another planet.
Wow!
And I'm real excited about that. I have the opportunity to advise and review that. And they have a 2-year project that we should learn a lot more. It's the next step up, and we keep going. So extreme climate growing systems, that's about as extreme as you can get on the Earth.
Sure.
The other may be, go to the Middle East when it's
that's right.
At 50 degrees Celsius or more. then you don't want to have that sun beating through your glass greenhouse, but you want to insulate the roof and go indoors. There are very logical reasons for us to learn this technology and to make it better, to improve it, that we're not using at the moment, but I believe we will in these circumstances. And for reasons in the future that we can't envision right now. I don't know, a plant that has the genetics that are beneficial to you as an individual. DD, I'm sorry. Not DD has this lettuce that he has to grow, this lettuce, and eat a few leaves a day because it provides him longevity of life. Because we know about it from the genetic studies of of our human genome, and they made some changes, and this plant will make you live longer.
So, Gene, if you had to rewrite the movie The Martian, what would you change?
What I would change is I would demand that Matt Damon and the producer come to the Controlled Environment Ag Center and visit our Mars lunar greenhouse, which, by the way, looked very similar to, in some respects, looked similar to what they had in the movie. I loved the movie.
Yep.
I read the book, and I did dog ear a number of pages to remind myself to write to the author and say, no way. No.
But what is the way now? I mean, what would you, I mean, to have a fallback system in case things fail and you have to stay there for a long time, potatoes are not exactly the best nutritionist food I can think of.
Well,
you should have a varied diet, right?
Well, they're not bad. They're not bad, but he got pretty thin as you saw him.
Sure did. He sure did.
But you realize he had no other seed. That was supposed to be his Thanksgiving meal.
Yeah, no, I know.
Planted it. Now, the beauty, what they brought to the table, and we use this to promote our programs to some extent, was that you checked my email. It's in there at the bottom of my signature. That he was not just as he said, the best botanist on the planet. He had background in botany, but he was actually a mechanical engineer. Uh-huh. I mean, so everybody has dual responsibilities when you go on these flights. And the beauty to me was I can tell the students, look, he survived because he had an appreciation for controlled environments and food production. He didn't know a lot about them, but he was a mechanical engineer that he could improvise, and he had some experience in growing some crops, and the only choice he had was potatoes, which are pretty easy to grow. I mean, you just stick them in the ground, but he didn't have any soil. He had to create that, and he really, I mean, let's face it, he did not have enough light to grow anything in that building.
This is true.
The engineers would never have provided so much light if it was just for people, because
that's right.
People perceive light differently than plants, as we know. We won't go into the lecture, but I could direct you to a place on the web where Jerry Kubota explains that very clearly. But the point is that tells me that they could never have grown. He didn't add more light, so that's a limiting factor. Yeah. But one final thing about that thing is, I wonder how much the duct tape people paid. Because he would solve every problem with duct tape.
That's right. So did you ever have any experiments sent up to the International Space Station?
Unofficially, yes. I worked, when I did my sabbatic leave in Italy, working for an aerospace company that was trying to get in space. I was there for a year as an advisor, and they put up a small... actually, it wasn't inflatable, but it was it's collapsible, clear plastic, rectangular greenhouse about the size of the footprint of a laptop computer. And I wanted to grow dandelion because it's a weed, and I know it would grow very easily. They made us grow Arabidopsis because they knew a lot about it already. But the point is, that was the only crop I could get close to and say I had some input in producing on the space station. Now remember, the space station is microgravity.
Yeah.
All of my crops, all of the systems we work with, even our lunar greenhouse, Mars greenhouse, is made for terrestrial growing. We need some gravity to make it work. And to be honest, very clear about it, it's cheaper to build a system that's terrestrial than it is to go into microgravity.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, no. So I'm not there yet. I do enjoy what we do for terrestrial growing on another planet, because we can immediately apply what we learn to people growing in advanced greenhouses here on Earth.
Right.
Particularly about control, about recycling, about nutrient deficiencies and utilization, and even energy and water utilization. I like to say that the past 50 or 60 years of hydroponics and controlled environments were brought to NASA in our project, our experiences, and put into a form they could appreciate. You know, it's a collapsible cylinder. It's lightweight. It's very a lot of plants per unit area, and it's controllable. And we learned that, and hydroponics running it. So we learned that from on Earth, and now it's just applied it in a different way. And now what we learn is to bring that back to our Earth systems, which are not as critically limited by resources yet compared to the moon or Mars. Water, energy, nutrients. You have to bring them all with you or create them somehow. But on Earth, there are places where water is becoming more and more limited, and quality of water, of course. So all these things come back from this investment that NASA is doing in us for the long-term future of space travel and feeding people. But we can bring that back today to people on Earth and say, maybe we can help you.
Right. I thought the interesting opening scene in Interstellar made a big point about changing climate, and they're down to one crop, basically. That was drought-resistant corn.
Yeah.
You can't... Yeah, you can turn into a kernel of popcorn, I guess, if that's all you've got to eat. But it's not about corn, I don't think. So I must tell you from a personal standpoint, Gene, that the moment we met and the more I thought about all the things that I had learned since I've visited you several times and I go around the world also, I never failed to drop your name first because you are the world's recognized guru for how to do it right for indoor controlled environment. And that's why we pursued you to the point of almost taking our podcast out to Tucson to get you to do this, because we really wanted everybody to hear your wisdom and your enthusiasm. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Well, you're very welcome. And I can't see it exactly as you're saying it there, but I appreciate that. And if it can bring more light and information to what we're trying to do here at the Controlled Environment Ag Center, then please keep name dropping all you wish. And,
Thank you.
And yes, send more students. Those who are interested, I reply to everyone.
Sure.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
When are you going to produce a handbook that everybody can buy and take advantage of some of this knowledge that you're passing out in these short courses?
Yes. We have, it comes out with every individual short course, but everyone is slightly different. And we get a lot of repeat customers because of that. The fundamentals, I guess, stay the same, but we're going to go online in the near future.
Oh, good.
And we'd like to create a certificate program with the caveat that you can take 4 courses from us online, but that you still have to come here for a week, maybe 2 weeks. And we'll pick a good time of the year. When you really want to be here, when it's real cold up in the north and the east and whatever, and get your hands into a crop in hydroponics. That to me is a certificate program of value.
Nice.
Learn the book information, but also get your hands in it. That's what it's all about.
Thank you very much, Gene.
You're welcome, and I appreciate the opportunity. Let's keep going and growing, okay?
There you go. Let's all grow up.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye now.
See ya.
You can find Urban Agriculture at iTunes and at microbe.tv/urbanag. And if you have questions or comments about anything that we say, you can send them to urbanag@microbe.tv. And here I will insert. Gene Giacomelli is a professor at the University of Arizona in Tucson. Thank you so much for joining us, Gene. Dickson Despommier is at verticalfarm.com. Thank you, Dickson.
You're welcome.
Glad we finally got Gene on.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. It
was good.
Yeah, he's terrific.
Sounds like a good guy.
He's a very nice man, too. That's the other thing about him. He's straightforward. He's honest. He doesn't exaggerate. He's not a master of hyperbole. And for that reason, I think perhaps he's kept a low profile for a lot of years, but I think right now he's at the top of his game.
He really should have been the script consultant for The Martian.
That's exactly right.
But who knew? Keeps a low profile, right?
That's true.
But now, if anyone else wants to make a movie about living in space, they know where to go.
Yeah.
I'm Vincent Racaniello. You can find me at virology.ws. The music you hear on Urban Agriculture is performed by John Harrison with the Wichita State University Chamber Players and by Ronald Jenkins. You can find his work at ronaldjenkins.com. You've been listening to Urban Agriculture. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back soon. Hey, Dickson.
Yeah?
See you in the greenhouse.
You got it upstairs in the double greenhouse.